tonight's class is called Life's Four Questions. Life's Four Questions. The story goes that there was a journalist in America interviewing a Russian immigrant about what life was like under the Soviet Union, under Soviet rule. And obviously they left Russia and came to the United States of America. So he's asking this Russian immigrant, tell us, what was life like in Russia? And the immigrant says, I couldn't complain. Oh, he couldn't complain. It was like, I thought life was difficult. And I said, well, how was it easy to get a job? So the Russian says, I couldn't complain. Wow, that's really interesting. And tell me, what about Jewish practice? Were you able to sort of do anything there, Jewish practice-wise? I couldn't complain. Every question he asked him, I couldn't complain. The the journalist turns to the Russian and says, after, just out of interest, since you came here because obviously you wanted to leave Russia, but it sounds like life in Russia was pretty good if you couldn't complain. Why did you come to the United States of America? So the immigrant says, because here I can complain. There's something about being able to ask questions and also criticize that is a sign of freedom, right? In places where there is a authoritarian rule, you're not allowed to ask questions. You can't criticize. You can't question someone's leadership, someone's power. But in places of freedom, democracy, right? It's a sign of freedom. So the fact that we're going to look at questions, first and foremost, there's something about questions which are very telling. Now, the particular piece that we're going to look at is a piece of Talmud which deals with questions that we're going to be asked after we pass away. Is anyone familiar with this passage of Talmud? The 4 questions that you're going to be asked after you pass away. God forbid you guys should pass away, but after other people pass away, they're going to be asked 4 questions. So first and foremost, just in terms of the structure of Torah, we know there is a written Torah, which is made up of 24 books, the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, and then there is the oral Torah, both of them given to Moshe at Mount Sinai, and then obviously he wrote the written Torah down, but the oral Torah was meant to remain oral until Yehuda HaNasi wrote the Mishnah, because the Jewish people were being exiled from the land of Israel many years later, and he didn't want the teachings to get lost. So he wrote down the Mishnah. When he did that, he wrote it into 6 orders. They're called the Shishe Sidrei Mishnah, 6 orders of the Mishnah, each order capturing a certain theme, and under each order there were multiple tractates. So for instance, the tractate that we're looking at is the tractate of Shabbat, which is the laws that have to do with Shabbat, although the Talmud is written in a very tangential way. If you ever studied any Talmud, just for a second, have all of you guys studied Gemara before? Talmud? All of you, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. Jacob and Noam, not so much. A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so the Talmud is written in Aramaic. The Mishnah is written in Hebrew. But the Talmud is also written in a cryptic fashion, which sort of maintains the debate element because it needs to be discussed, and I guess it works best out of a sense of debate, positions. What do you think? Well, what does this mean? Asking sort of critical questions. And I'm just mentioning this simply because we're going to look at one tiny little passage of Talmud, of the Gemara, and it just shows you how laden, how, potent just a little teaching can be. So this is my, I don't know if I can share, allow Zoom to share your screen. Can you hold up? I'm going to log back in a second so I can share my screen. Hold on, okay? I'm going to, Jacob, I'm making you the host.
All right.
You're the captain now.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a lot of responsibility for me.
Unmute. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay. This should work now. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Here's the piece of Talmud. Here's the piece of the Gemara, right? It's Shabbat over here is the tractate. It's the second parak, Parak Sheni, and then the title of the parak is called B'mei Madlikin, which deals with what we can use to light for Shabbos candles. And in this chapter also happens to deal with some of the laws that have to do with Hanukkah. There's no tractate for Hanukkah, but it's found in here. We're on page Lamed Aleph, which is 31, and we're looking at this little tiny piece down the bottom here. Okay? And in bigger, how do we get to the next page? Yeah. In bigger, this is what it looks like in bigger. Oh, I'm just going to full screen. Or maybe not. Hold on 1 second, sorry. Might have updated my computer and so. Now it's crashing on me. Can you guys see this screen? Yes?
Yeah. We
Yes.
can see it.
Okay, well, I have a turning circle, which I don't know, maybe it's frozen. Hold on 1 second. Let's try that again. Apologize. Bear with me 2 seconds. Hold on. Oh, whoa. Keynote gone. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Okay, let's try that again. Here we go. Here's the teaching. It says like this. I'm gonna with my cursor. I'm a Rabbah, right? Rava says as follows: B'shah shemachnisin adam ladin. At the time that a person is being brought to judgment, which means after his life is over, and you're being taken to account for the things that you've done. Omrim lo. They're going to say to him, doesn't say who, probably means God and his court, right? They're going to say to him 4 things. And here they are in very brief. Nesasa v'nesata be'emuna. Number 1, did you do Ma'asen Matan in Hebrew? Noam, what's Ma'asen Matan? You know what that is?
Matan is a gift, right?
Yeah, but Ma'asen Matan means to give and take. So Nesata v'nesata be'emuna means it literally means business. Nesata v'nesata be'emuna means, did you do business be'emuna? Now, traditionally it means faithfully, right? Or traditionally it might mean honestly. Were you honest in business? That's a common question, the common way it's phrased. Were you honest in business? The second one is Kvata itim la Torah. Did you did you fix times for the study of Torah? The third question, Asakta bepiria uravia, pruruvu. Did you engage in the mitzvah of having children? That's the third question. And the fourth question is, tzipisa liyeshua. Did you look forward? Tzipui means to glance ahead. Did you look forward to salvation, to redemption? Literally, Mashiach. These are the 4 questions, says Rav, that a person is going to be asked when he is brought to the end of his life, to the judgment. Were you honest in business? Did you fix times for Torah? Were you engaged in the mitzvah of having children? And did you look towards the future salvation? Did you anticipate the coming redemption? These are them over here. Rabbi said, a person is going to their finding that. Did you conduct your business faithfully? Set times for Torah, engage in procreation, and did you await the messianic redemption? Right? Now, these are powerful questions. I'm sure you're aware, like there's the joke that goes around about the minister and the imam, Christian minister, and the imam and the Jew, and they're having a discussion. I guess it's already a joke, right? They're sitting around drinking a beer, and they're discussing like what they want people to say at their funeral. So the Christian is like, he waxes lyrical. I would like them to say that I was such an upright person. I served my community with such a commitment. The imam, that he was a man of noble ideas and he stood up for what was right. And the Jew says, at my funeral, I want people to say, hey, look, he's moving. We don't want to die in Judaism. We don't want to die, and we don't want to think about death either. Judaism is about living in the here and now. We're not concerned or obsessed over what's going to be after we die. But nonetheless, the Talmud tells us that we're going to be asked these questions. Now, the only reason that, I guess one main reason why we are told this is because we're supposed to learn from this what is important to dedicate our lives to, so that when we pass, we will be able to answer these questions in the full force with good answers, I guess with content-filled answers. So we're not obsessing over what's going to be when we die. We want to use these questions as focus to know what's important to be occupied with while we're alive. And I'm just going to go through them and try and beef them up a little bit. Any questions so far, you guys? Any questions on this?
Yeah, aren't you asked what your name is as well?
Did you see that somewhere?
Um,
It might be. It's not part of this teaching.
Okay, because I was always told before you step back for the Amida, you're supposed to say your portion determined by your name.
Oh, the verse, the pasuk.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you do that is because you're going to be asked that when you pass, and who's your Rebbe.
I didn't see that. I do. There definitely is that pasuk where it's the first letter and the last letter of your name, right?
Yeah.
So you do Mordechai's Mem Yud.
Right.
Okay, so in the back of the siddur, there's a place where you can look up the psukim, right? I didn't hear that you do that because you're going to be asked that after you pass, but that doesn't mean anything because I don't know all of Torah. But that's interesting. I definitely know that's a thing to say. I do it personally. Okay, and who your Rebbe was, you said?
Yeah, you're supposed to also say your
your Rebbe's name.
And their pasuk as well.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I do me and my wife, but maybe I should do my Rebbe. I should do all of them. Here we go. Okay, nice, cool. The first question, right? Did you conduct your business faithfully? Now, if you saw it in the Hebrew, you can see that the word emunah is being used here. Whereas most people translate this word as this question as, were you honest in business? Emunah is not really translated as honesty, right? No, I mean, what would you say for honesty? Yashar, shirut, emet, truth, yeah. Or yashar is honest, like an honest person, upright. That's not the language that's being used. Rather, the language that's being used is emunah. So this actually was commented upon by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he said that this question, it traditionally means, did you conduct business honestly? Were you honest in business? But there's a deeper way to read this question, and that would be, were you faithful to your business? Not were you faithful in business, but were you faithful to nasata v'nasasa be'emunah means were you faithful in your business? And that's why nasata means yours in Hebrew. If you speak in Hebrew, it means your business. Now, what does it mean, your business? So first and foremost, we know that every Jew is here on official business. We're here on official business. We're here on the business of being Jewish people. which means that's our business. We're not here to make money. I mean, that's a nice thing. We're not here necessarily to, to build a lot of prestige. All those things could be good, but we're here for Jewish business. God put us in this world as Jews because we have a mission to accomplish as Jews. What are some of the character traits that we as Jews are held accountable for? It says in the Talmud that there are 3 things that you can see about Jews that you should find within the Jewish people. A Jewish person should embody 3 character traits. Gom lechesed, which means that they should be kind. Avram Fried has a song about this. Baishon. How do you say Baishon? He's not embarrassed so much
Humility?
as... Yeah, some humility. Good. There's some humility. There's another one. It slips my mind for now. I wanted to focus on just a few of the ideas. When you say when you're faithful to were you faithful to your business as a Jew? I wanted to elaborate on this idea for a second. So there's a well-known philanthropist, certainly in Chabad. Everyone knows his name. His name is George Rohr. He has given a lot of money to Chabad houses all over the world, and is extremely philanthropic. He inherited his business from his father, Sammy Rohr, who was also a very well-known businessman. I think he mainly is in property. He lives in New York City. Basically, in his younger years, when he was starting out with his philanthropic endeavors, he came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe to tell the Rebbe, I think it was Sunday dollars, perhaps, which is, or was maybe a Motzei Shabbos or something, where he was passing by the Rebbe, getting $1 and telling the Rebbe some good news and asking for a blessing. So as he was passing the Rebbe, and this is on videotape, he says to the Rebbe, I wanted to tell the Rebbe that I started a shul in Manhattan for Jews with no background. And the Rebbe leaned in, as if he didn't hear him. So he repeated himself, Rabbi, I wanted to tell you, I wanted to give you some nachas. I started a shul, a synagogue, a shul in Manhattan for Jews with no background, expecting that the Rebbe is going to pat him on the back and be like, that's amazing. You've done a great job. You should go on to do more. But the Rebbe leaned in again as if he didn't hear. So he understood from this that there was something he was saying that was not, was not finding its place in the Rebbe's mind. So he asked, is there something I'm saying? It's not, that's not okay. The Rebbe said as follows. He said, there's no such thing as a Jew without a background. No such thing as a Jew without a background. What does he mean? He said, we're called Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people. And when we're called Yisrael, the word Yisrael is an acronym for all of the Avot and Imaot, for the forefathers and the foremothers. Yud stands for Yaakov and Yosef. The Sin stands for Sarah. The Reish for Rachel and Rivka. The Aleph for Avraham. And the Lamed stands for Leah. In the word Yisrael, you have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. The Rebbe said there's no such thing as a Jew without a background. No such thing as a Jew who doesn't have a rich and noble background filled with the values of the Jewish people. If you're a Jew, you embody the characteristics of the Jews who founded our religion, who came before us and gave their lives to sort of, reveal and, publicize the values of being Jewish. Having said that, what are some of these character traits? If we could give Avraham Avinu, Avraham our forefather, if we could give him, if you could imagine his face, what would it look like? What would his face look like? So you probably have a beard, but certain people, you can tell a little bit of their character based on the way their face looks. What do you think he would, imagine looking at him. What would you see? What impression would you get?
Chesed.
Chesed.
He said he was the most loving of all the patriarchs. So
Right. and we know that the patriarchs mirror Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, which are the three, the first three emotional sfirot, which is kindness, severity, and harmony. Avraham represents kindness, Chesed, like you said, perfect, Mori. He probably had an open face, a big smile, a welcoming appearance, right? I mean, that would be how you'd imagine Abraham's face. And that was indeed his modus operandi, was to do acts of kindness. His tent had four sides, four walls that were open. It says his tent was open on all sides. Why? So if any passerby should come from any direction, he wanted them to know that they're welcome to come into his tent. And he wanted to serve guests so badly that in Parshat Vayera, all right, where God reveals himself to Avraham, it opens up like this. Here's the verse. Avraham, the Lord appeared to him, which means to Avraham, in the plains of Mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of his tent when the day was hot. If you ever want to do textual analysis, this is a perfect verse to do it on. Hashem is coming to Avraham, right? So we learned from this already that there's a mitzvah of hachnasas, of bikur cholim. Avraham was shortly after his circumcision, 3 days after he got his bris milah, God comes to visit him. So we learn from God that we actually have to do a mitzvah of visiting the sick. Avraham is sick. He's healing from a wound. 99 years old. He gave himself a circumcision. It's crazy. He's in the plains of Mamre. We're told that because he consulted with a guy called Mamre about doing the circumcision, and he told him he should go ahead and do it. He was sitting at the entrance of his tent when the day was hot. Why was he sitting at the entrance of his tent? Why isn't he lying down, resting, man? He's 99 years old. He just had a major operation. He should be resting. Why is he at the entrance of his tent?
Wait, what's the entrance of his tent if there's no walls?
It means as opposed to like inside, perhaps on his bed or resting on a couch or something, or sitting in a chair or sitting at the table. It literally means, his tent had walls. It's just that he would open them up. Like it had, I don't know. That's my, I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's significant that he was at the entrance as opposed to maybe inside somewhere, resting. Why is he at the entrance of his tent? What does he want?
He's looking for visitors.
Looking for guests, his main occupation, right? And the day was hot. Why was the day hot? So Rashi says already, God took the sun out because he didn't want to trouble Avram with wayfarers, because he needs to recover. So, but what happens? It's true he's in pain and he needs to recover, because we learn later that he had to change his bandages. But since he saw that that Avraham was troubled, that there was no one coming by, God brought him some of these malachim, some of these angels in the likeness of man. So even though Avraham is in pain, he's still solely occupied with having guests, to the point that he's more upset that he doesn't have guests than he is in pain trying to recover from his injury, from his surgery. So first and foremost, we see Avraham is like he wants to give everything he's got to serve guests. There's this student here at Cornell. He's a freshman. He just finished his freshman year. And before he came to Cornell, he traveled to Israel in the summer before he came to Cornell. And when he was on his way to Israel, he stopped at an airport, one of the ones in Europe, I think maybe Hamburg or something. And he had to get off the airplane, and he had to, I guess, they had to change planes. And he was sitting in the lobby waiting to board again. And he was sitting next to a guy who clearly was Orthodox. This kid is not religious, but he's Jewish. And they start talking, and this frum guy says to him, "Where are you going to be for the first Shabbos in Israel?" So he tells him, "I'm coming." He's very into Israeli history, Jewish history, not Israeli, it's Jewish history. And so he tells him that he doesn't know, he had no plans for that Shabbos. The guy says to him, "Come to my house, come spend Shabbos with me and my family. We'd be honored to have a guest." They just met in the airport. He doesn't know who this guy is, but you're Jewish, you're like family, and you're welcome in my home. And he said he went, and he said it was a very special Shabbos. The family totally welcomed him like a member of their own family. This is a mitzvah. This is a character trait that we as Jews need to embody. It means taking a different perspective on what your property is. It's not yours to just indulge. It's yours to share and to use as a way of bringing people together. This is the trait of Avraham. Another, so we said Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rachel, Leah. Yosef. What about Yosef? There's this famous piece about Yosef. There's no, once we leave Avraham, the one character who the whole book of Bereshit deals with more than anybody else is Yosef. There's like the drama of this story, right? Yosef basically has a terrible life. He's hated by his brothers. He's 17 years old. He gets sold to slavery. His brothers are jealous of him. His mother died earlier as well when his brother Benjamin was born, and she's buried in Beit Lechem. And he's sold into slavery, and on his way down to Egypt, he manages to pull himself away from the caravan of, I guess, I don't know if they were Egyptians at that point. I think he was sold multiple times. And it says he made his way to the grave of his mother, and he's pounding on the grave, "Mother, mother, why have you forsaken me? My life is miserable," basically. He goes to the prison. I'll come and talk to you soon. Yeah, okay, but you have to make sure she's okay. Okay. So, my daughter Esty. He gets to Egypt, and because he's Yosef and he rises to the top, he starts working for this guy. The guy entrusts his whole household to. Eventually, the wife of Potiphar takes a liking to Yosef, tries to have her way with him, and eventually she frames him. He gets put in prison. He's in prison now, in an Egyptian prison. It's miserable there. I mean, can you imagine? It's not like I can't imagine prison is pleasant anywhere, but Egyptian, I don't know if they cared about you. You guys down there, maybe you'll never get out. He's walking around in prison. Yosef came in the morning. He sees these men. They were troubled. He asked Pharaoh's chamberlains who were with him in the prison of the house, saying, "Why are your faces sad today?" He turns to these guys in the prison and he asks them, in the Hebrew it says, "Madua pneichem royim hayom." Why do you look so down? So they said to him that we have a dream and we no interpreter. Yosef said to them, interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams. And he interprets the dreams for them. And actually his interpretations are correct. He paves the way for his ultimate salvation, because one of them is reinstated. And then he tells Pharaoh years later that when Pharaoh has dreams, that there's this Jewish kid in the prison. He knows how to interpret dreams. And then what happens is Yosef gets out of prison and he goes and interprets Pharaoh's dreams. It's correct. Pharaoh sets him as second to the king, and he goes literally from prison to top of the kingdom. It's unbelievable. And it all turns at this moment where he's walking around in prison and he could be so consumed with his own sadness and loss. And I guess feelings of, depression, that he could not notice anybody else. But what does he do? He looks to his fellow Jews and he says, "Hey guys, why are you so down? What do you mean? We're in prison, man. Life sucks. What are you talking about?" That's not what they say. That's not what he does. He is conscious and sensitive to other people, even at the time of his own misery. And he actually has a very upbeat attitude. So we learn from Yosef to always be, positive. To have there's a book about the Rebbe right now going around called Positivity Bias. Always walking around seeing how you can help, even in the most dire circumstances. Maybe this is very relevant to our situation right now, where things are miserable. But we need to sort of walk around with a positive frame of mind, always seeking to help other people. That's Yosef. There's more people. I brought another one here, Moshe. Moshe's story, he starts out with, you guys, the daughter of Paro. What was her name? Paro's daughter. Anyone know? Paro's daughter's name is Batia. Paro's daughter went down to bathe in the Nile. She took her maidens. They were walking on the Nile, and she saw a basket in the midst of the marsh, and she sent her maidservant, and she took it. Right? You familiar with this story? She's walking down. She sees Moshe. Moshe was put into the Nile by his mother, Yocheved, because she couldn't hide him anymore, and all Jewish boys had to get thrown into the Nile. So she put him in a basket, put him in the Nile. This is a crazy story. Pharaoh's daughter, she was actually very sick of her father's attachment to idol worship. So she would go down to the Nile to sort of cleanse herself from, she didn't enjoy being in her father's home. She sees this kid. Now, imagine this is like, as if like Hitler's daughter brings home a Jewish kid and raises the Jewish kid in Hitler's own home. I mean, that's literally what's going on. Pharaoh's daughter, she brings home this boy and raises a Jewish boy in the home of Pharaoh under his own nose. But how does it start? It says she sent her maidservant. This word maidservant, okay, is called in the Hebrew amasa, her maidservant. But the rabbis say that there's actually some other interpretation for this word amasa, because it's not following the rules of grammar, it's not vowelized correctly. It should be amasa with a dagesh in the mem, see a little dot in the mem, but it's not. So therefore, they interpret the word as es amasa to mean that she stretched her hand and she did go gadget hand and she reached the basket and she pulled Moshe in. You'd think to yourself, if you saw something that would require you to do something impossible, why even bother trying, right? But she tries nonetheless. And what happens? Hashem makes a miracle and she's able to bring him in. And then actually the story has a beautiful twist that he wouldn't nurse the baby boy, Moshe. So what do? They go and find a Jewish wet nurse to nurse the kid, and ends up being Moshe's own mother, Yocheved. So he gets nursed by his own mother in the house of Pharaoh, raised under Pharaoh's own nose. It's like a crazy story, literally. You couldn't make this up if you tried. But we see from here that an impossible situation doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Hashem will take care of the rest. Hashem will do the rest. Again, so there's like rising to the challenges of life and doing our part, even if it seems impossible. This is part of the Jewish spirit. So when we say, are you faithful to your business as a Jew? That means embodying the characteristics of chesed, of kindness. Of Yosef is positivity. Moshe is, the whole story of Moshe begins with the impossible, but nonetheless trying. And I guess there's this other story from Reb Zusha. Morty, you said the story about your name. Zusha of Anipol, he says, when a person passes away, you're going to go up to heaven and they're going to ask you, they're not going to pull out Moshe's resume and say, hey, like, why weren't you more like Moshe? Match your life against Moshe. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, hey, Morty, why weren't you more like Morty? Hillel, why weren't you more like Hillel? That's the question they're going to ask you, right? They're going to wonder, why didn't you actualize the character traits that you were given? We're all given these qualities, obviously, but as Jews, we need to embody the Jewish traits and then use them to magnify our own God-given traits. Okay, this is the first question. The second question was, did you fix times to learn Torah? The first one was, were you faithful to your business? I mean, it's, were you honest in business, but I'm rereading it as, were you faithful to your business? Second question, did you fix times to learn Torah? Why is this so important? What is it about learning Torah that is so important? So I just brought one idea, and that is clearly from the Mishnah, right? You guys have all learned Pirkei Avot before? Everybody here or not? Morty and Hillel, Jacob, Noam, Pirkei Avot, teachings of the forefathers, right? There's no greater testament to the rethinking of ideas in Torah than what we find in the fourth perek, Pirkei Avot, the first Mishnah, where Ben Zoma teaches us, okay, 4 ideas that if you were to stop someone on the street and ask them about these ideas, in common culture, they would give you one answer, and Torah says, no, we have to think about these ideas differently. There are modern paradigms, and Torah has very different paradigms. So one reason why we need to fixed times for studying Torah is because Torah helps us think about things in a different way, in a deeper way, looking more to the spirit, to the deeper dimension of life rather than living only with the superficial. So in that teaching, right, I'll just tell you quickly. The first one, he says, Ezehu Chacham. Who's a wise man? Right? If you were to stop someone and ask, who's a wise man? Give me the name of a wise person. So people would say, oh, okay, Albert Einstein. I don't know, the Rambam. But what is wisdom, right? Does anyone remember what he says over there? Who is wise? Anybody? He says, Halomed Mikol Adam. A wise person is not someone who has got a PhD, he acquired a tremendous amount of wisdom. It's a person who learns from everybody. Wisdom in the Torah is about learning from everyone, and the Baal Shem Tov said it's more about learning from everything. Everything that you encounter in life. I think in Yeshiva, in Mayanot, we used to say that life is a chevrusa with God. Life is everything that's going on. God is sending you messages, whatever it is. You saw something today, you were meant to see it. Why? You meant to learn a lesson. Somebody said something to you, whether it was good or bad or negative or whatever, critical. It's all because it's meant to be a lesson for you to take away. That's wisdom. True wisdom is being able to learn from every situation. The next one is Ezehu Gibor, who's strong. Anyone remember what the answer is? Ezehu Gibor. So you would ask someone in the street, right? So Donald, tell me who's Ezehu Gibor? He'll tell you, he's someone who works out. They're buff physically, yeah, can lift a lot of weights. That's not strength. Strength in the Torah is Hakovish as Yitzro, the one who conquers his inclinations. I have temptations to do things, but I build self-discipline and I can control myself. That's real strength. Strength is self-control. How much better would the world be if we could all cultivate a sense of self-control? Not doing what I want, when I want, saying what I want, just because today we live in a generation where if you feel something, then they say it's unhealthy not to give effect to it. If you feel it, do it. I don't know, not necessarily. Not every stimulus is good. Ezehu Ashir, famous, right? That's the third one. Who's rich? Come on, Noam. You got. Oh, this is famous, right? There's the story about the stone cutter, right? Where he starts off cutting stone and he wants to be the sun and he gets the moon and eventually he wants to be the mountain and he becomes a mountain and the only threat is the stone cutter, and he realizes that he should have been a stone cutter from the outset because that was what he was meant to be. That's the point is, Hasamech V'Helko means the one who's happy with his lot, the one who rejoices in his portion. Not like advertising comes along and tells you, hey, you'll only be happy if you buy this new, I don't know, gadget, this new device, this new piece of camping equipment, this new, I don't know, reading device, whatever it is, piece of, doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. We all know. All the things that advertising is telling us. You'll only be happy when you get all these things. No, Hasamech V'Helko tells us it's about focusing on what you've got and celebrating what you've already got. And then you'll be rich. A rich person that says if you have 100, you want 200, you have 200, you want 500. No matter, there's always the desire for more. And the last one was Ezehu Mechubad, who was an honorable person. So you think honorable person, a person of high office, right? He holds a very important office, whether it's in government or a teacher or Rebbe. And the answer is, again, it's not about what he's accomplished, but it says the one who, the one who honors his fellows. If you honor your fellow Jew or you honor your fellow person, that it makes you an honorable person. Taking paradigms and seeing them through a different lens. Torah, I guess, challenges us to see things in a different way. The next one is Asakta B'Piriyavia. did you engage in procreation? The third question, right? Now, what does it mean engage in procreation? So first and foremost, it doesn't just mean Bob Marley style, where I went and I had a bunch of kids with a bunch of women and I don't know any who they are. It means, did you establish a family and raise children in accordance with the values that you hold dear, right? And in fact, Avram Avinu was actually praised by God because he went on to teach his children the ways of Torah, the ways of morality. And so God says about him that I loved him because of this. So when it says, did you engage in procreation, it means, did you have a family? Did you have children? Did you establish did you raise them in accordance with Torah? So it also, I guess, has to do with marrying the right person. I think first and foremost, we should say that in today's generation, where there is a lot of Jews marrying, say, out of the fold, we have to ask the question of what does it mean to choose the right person? A Jewish person, the definition of a Jew in Torah is not somebody who has a certain amount of belief in Torah or in Judaism. A Jew is an identity of the soul. Meaning to say, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a church with a Santa Claus outfit, getting a tattoo, eating a bacon and cheeseburger, writing in your will how you want to be cremated, but you're born to a Jewish mother, or whether you're an Orthodox Jew and you've got a Strymel and Payas and you daven 3 times a day with tzitzis, neither one is more Jewish. A Jew is a Jew. A Jew is a soul identity. Irrespective of what a person does, a Jew is about who you are. Now, marriage is, the definition of marriage is, it's not because, maybe people will say it's for taxes, I don't know, or it's because I want to live my life with somebody. The definition of marriage ultimately is a bond of the soul. A bond of the soul means that you have to be soulfully compatible. And when a Jew who is a soul identity chooses another Jewish person to marry, there's a soul compatibility there that builds the infrastructure and the foundation to have a Jewish family and to raise children with a kind of inspiration and insight and love for Jewish practice. Did you contribute to the Jewish community? Did you have children? Did you engage in having children? Did you engage in procreation? It's part and parcel of finding a Jewish mate, getting married, and then having children and raising those children according to Torah mitzvahs. The last question was, did you tzipita liyeshua? Did you look towards the future redemption? Right? If any Jewish leader were to be asked, when is Mashiach coming? The correct answer would be today, tomorrow, right away. And even though that Mashiach hasn't come until now, never to lose faith in this as an ideal. And if you look at the Jewish people, we've traveled all over the world, right? We've been everywhere. We've been exiled from every continent, and we've gone to every place. Wherever there's Coca-Cola, right? There's Jews hanging out. Even though America, as blessed as the country has been for the Jewish people, it's still not the final destination. It means that we're not supposed to stay here. It's good now, right? But we're meant to. This is not the end. I'm going to show you a piece of Gemara from Baba Basra. Here we go. About this sage. His name is Rabba Bar Chana. Rabba Bar Chana. The Torah tells us, the Talmud, the Gemara tells us a lot of stories about his life. He used to travel a lot. Here's one of the stories. Rabba Bar Chana stated, once we were traveling aboard a ship and we saw a fish whose back was covered with sand and there was grass, out of which grew grass. Thinking that it was an island, so we went up and we baked and cooked on the back of this fish. But when the back was heated because I guess they were cooking there. So the fish turned over. I guess he got agitated. And had the ship not been nearby, we would have drowned. This is the story in the Gemara. So obviously, yeah, but you have one. This is metaphoric, obviously. I mean, I don't know. Was there a huge ship? Was there a huge fish that they could stand on? This was the first barbecue recorded in the Torah, right? They had a barbecue on the back of a fish, and the fish got agitated. He turned over, and they fell in the water. They would have drowned if the boat hadn't been nearby. One interpretation could be like this. This is the story of the Jewish people. We get on the ship of the Jewish community, and we travel around the world, and we go from one place to the next, and every city or country that we arrive at, we get out and we're like, hey, this is nice over here. Look at this, Prague. I don't look at this place, the UK. I don't know. Look at Australia. Wow. Look at America, Hawaii, South America. Every country that we get to looks so nice. We get out, we make a barbecue, we build businesses, we make kosher restaurants. Miami, think about it, wherever we go. But what happens is, I don't know, the people around us get agitated and they turn their back and they turn over and we fall off. They kick us out, and we would probably drown if the ship, which literally means the ark, the Jewish hub, wasn't nearby. If I couldn't attach myself to Torah and continue on with the Jewish people to the next destination, we would probably drown, which would mean that we would assimilate, we'd get lost. But what did we do? We jumped on the bandwagon with more Jews and we moved on to the next location. And that's literally how it's been throughout the course of history, from one place to the next, traveling, constantly on the move. And that's because we're not where we're supposed to be. It's hard to say this since I'm in Ithaca, and we should all be in Israel with Mayanot. But it doesn't just mean moving to Israel, because obviously that doesn't necessarily accomplish all of what is meant to be. Maybe that's one step. But certainly, as Jews, we need to live each day with the imminent anticipation of the coming of Mashiach. It's right around the corner. And it's through my next mitzvah that it's going to happen. Mine meaning yours and mine. Okay. That's it for now, but I want to ask the following question. We had 4 questions, right? So my question is there a connection between these 4 questions? Here are the questions again. Did you conduct business faithfully? Did you set fixed times for Torah study? Did you engage in procreation? And did you await the messianic redemption? What's the connection? Why all these 4 questions? Well, if you think about it, these questions track the general trajectory of every person's life, right? I've got 5 kids. I can tell you when one child is born, another child is born, right off the bat, every kid is different. Like every child has a different personality without any training, before you've started educating them the way you want. That's because every person has different talents, God-given talents that they're given at birth. And everyone's different. Not only do you look different, I mean, how complicated is the human face, right? It's just 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, 2 ears. But every person looks different, and every person is different. It says that in the Gemara. I think it says kashem she'ein de'aseyim shavis. Just like one's face is different from another person's face, so too his thoughts and his ideas are different. So how do you personally, how do you cultivate your own personal character traits and make sure that you maximize and you actualize them throughout the course of your life? How do you make sure that you're faithful to your business? So that comes the second question. You need Torah. Torah is the guide. Torah is the manual. Torah is the instruction book. Torah gives us the perspective. It's the navigation. It's the compass. If I don't have Torah, I'm lost. Once I've established who I am and I've managed to cultivate and to develop my own personal qualities, it's time to get married, start a family, have kids, raise those kids. And the 4th and final question is, did you await the Messianic redemption? That is the ultimate goal of it all. I start my life, right? And we go from selfishness to selflessness. And as I move through life, ultimately it's all in order to bring Mashiach and to transform the world.